Okay, well, it's very nice to be here because I run the organiser of the Amsterdam IRT Meetup group Sensemakers. I've got another few hats on there. I'm also a co-founder of a thing called Glimworm Beacons, where I had a company called Glimworm, and we wanted to get into hardware IoT, and that was our first toe in the water, making an actual commercial iBeacon. So that for me was a big eye-opener because it took me through the process of going from a design all the way through to mass production. So that was like a massive eye-opener for me. I initiated a thing called the iBeacon IoT Living Lab in Amsterdam, which I do on behalf of the city. Initially on behalf of the city of Amsterdam, which is a place where we're trying to connect the creative tech community with the smart city and IoT world. So by providing very thin, very lightweight level of infrastructure, just enough that they would need to just do some demos. And I'm an IoT mentor at Startup Bootcamp. And what I'm just going to do is just give you we'll take the word brief out because I think I've got about 7,000 slides. I'm going to go very quickly through. History of the Sensemakers Amsterdam IoT Meetup group, which is cannot be the first, but it was one of the early ones anyway.
And it started to have over 3,000 members.
Yeah. Well, we've just been overtaken, I think, by him over there, who runs the DC one. They've just beat us.
We've got, we reached about 3,700.
Yeah, 3,700.
For the internet thing, DC.
So we have been overtaken. We might have been the biggest one before. But what I'm going to do is just go through a timeline journey. There's so much that I could talk about, but I have to stop myself. So I'm just going to try and go through a sort of timeline journey, but also give you some context as well, because I'm British, but I've been living in Amsterdam for 20 odd years, and you have to understand a little bit about the Dutch and Amsterdam culture before you can really kind of understand how it all worked there, because they are a breeding park. It's very strange and amazing place actually. I love to live there. I'm not sure that I would ever go back to England actually. So this is where it all started in 2011 in a place called Vaag Society. Vaag is the Dutch word for weighing, and this building here is where, in the sort of 16th century, everything that came in and out of Amsterdam was weighed for tax. So this building is a very special building. It's beautiful. Up on the top here, it has a room called the Anatomicus something or other. But basically, it's where some of the first Dutch surgery happened, and all of the medical books were written. And it has this beautiful ceiling. If you look up, it's like a painted ceiling, all with old surgeons and old historic figures from that time. But this building here houses an organisation called the Vaag Society, and they work on behalf of the Dutch government and also for the European Union in doing social digital projects. And so they had at the end of the 80s and the early 90s, they already were doing kind of research into what will the digital world mean to a citizen. They're always on the leading edge, and they're actually where the government can't do it themselves, they basically hire the Vaag Society to do all that kind of freaky outreach work. I mean, they started the Internet of Things group in 2011, but what they're really busy with now is the do-it-yourself biology. So they've got people making. You can actually do a workshop up there where you can take some blood and they'll show you how to mutate your own genes. It's like they're really on the leading edge of everything. But so this is something unique to Holland, I think. The fact that you can even do this. And in 2011, there was a project called the Air Quality Egg. And how it came about was an American company called Patchbay. Who knows how Patchbay? Okay. Patchbay was the first cloud platform provider for Internet of Things data. So back then it wasn't really kind of Internet of Things data. They were mainly collecting, if you had a weather station or something at home, everything which is basically what we now call time series data. So it's just a time and value. So they made the kind of commercial cloud platform for that. And as part of that, they wanted to have publicity and to have data in there. So they actually came along to several meetup groups, and they said that they would sponsor a project to make an air quality sensing product. We kind of led the field mainly in Amsterdam, but we worked together with a couple of other meetup groups, which I'll come to on the next slide. But I really wanted to put this up because there is a crazy video which you can watch online about all these people making this kind of air quality egg. And in these pictures are some of the key characters. This is Casper Cohen. He was the original founder of the meetup group together with this guy from Patchbay. Mainly came to Holland all the time to party. He came over to Holland and he says, okay, we need to make this air quality egg, and what do you need? We need sensors. Okay, how many do you need? Well, we don't know. Okay. A month later, he came across with a box of sensors this big. Knock yourself out, guys. How many Arduinos do you need? I don't know, a couple hundred. Okay, boom, a couple hundred Arduinos. And we ended up at some point, I think we counted that we had a simultaneous meetup when we were really in the thick of it, with New York, London, and Amsterdam, and we had 200 people soldering simultaneously in 3 locations. I mean, it was just unbelievably crazy situation. One of the other really important people is this lady, Doreen. Doreen is a social anthropologist, and she works for Leiden University. She participated in the project, not only participated in it, but she documented the entire project. And then she wrote a paper at the end about it, and she even made a small documentary for Dutch television about the whole process, because she's studying the social anthropology of people in the maker movement and why they get into the maker movement and what outcomes they have and what it would mean for society. So she actually participated. This is Doreen in London actually making the first very high quality housing for the air quality egg, which you'll see is out of a McFlurry container. McFlurry container really worked because it had a hole on the top. So she was actually participated. Get rid of these. I thought I'd put it into. But yeah, so the whole thing started with this project and this kind of band of characters.
It's interesting that you had a social anthropologist, because when I created the group, that was part of my vision. I wanted us to be in not only the technology part of it, but the business side and the social aspects of it. I've yet found anything I can grab a hold of to start heading in that direction. So if anybody knows any social anthropologists here in town, please have them contact me.
We got one in the room.
Awesome.
No. Well, the crazy thing about these initial meetups is that the VARC Society is very, very good at organising things. So they've organised the first couple of meetups. They got somebody from the KNME, which is the Dutch Weather Institute, to tell us all about weather, clouds, how to measure stuff that's in the air. They got somebody from the RIVM, who is the Dutch official government body that is actually responsible for air quality, so they actually have to officially measure it for the government, and they explain to us everything about air quality. They also made sure that there were a couple of people who were physicists there, because every project we do, physicists always seem to play a massive part in it. They seem to know everything about it. So a couple of good physicists there. And then people like me that just joined up for the meetup group and came along. And we were shocked, actually. Most people were actually shocked at, number one, how little air quality is measured, because actually at that time the RIVM, they told us that it's measured in 6 places in the entire Netherlands. But they tell us on the news that the weather's bad in Amsterdam, but the air quality is good or bad here. It's all done with statistical data modelling. They can only afford 6 massive high quality sensors which get calibrated very frequently, and they cost some obscene amount of money. And when you speak to citizens about citizen science projects, mostly what we find is that there is a utter shock at how little stuff is actually being measured by government or government agencies. They really think that there's way more stuff done. And what we ended up doing was we kind of came up with this egg shape thing. That was a guy from Eindhoven. Eindhoven is where you get all the design guys in Holland. The Dutch design university is down there. So he says, oh, it has to be a nice shape with a nice sort of feel on it, so that we made this egg. And we kind of put it together, and we put the eggs around the world. We actually put it on a Kickstarter. Probably the next slide. We Kickstarter project of the year, which was not so difficult in 2011, because I think that was probably the second year of Kickstarter. I think it's slightly more difficult to become Kickstarter project of the year now. I think the only thing you had to do was actually get funded back then. But yeah, so we had this massive meetup. We had all these people involved. We did the Kickstarter campaign. We had really happily the VAR Society behind us, so there was organisation for some of it. We had Patchbay, who was this kind of commercial sponsor that really wanted to make it work. And in the end, and we had it in simultaneous meetups. I should have said Madrid and Barcelona, because these guys play a large part in the IoT community, especially nowadays. But actually what happened, this was our outcome. So, air quality egg scorecard, Patchbay, sponsor, big tick in the box. Because what did they get? They got loads of people to run around using the Patchbay service. They got some publicity, and they got stuff in their cloud, so it was like awesome for them. Makers, people in the community, we loved it, because we made something, and we were part of some bigger scheme. It's really awesome. Citizen scientists, this is a sort of summary that came out of Doreen's, it's a very small summary out of Doreen's work. They also loved it, because they could go and measure something. Citizens, let me tell you, the results were absolutely abysmal. You could not tell anything about air quality with the air quality egg. The sensors were so terrible that you could put two eggs next door to each other and they give you two different readings.
Oops.
And it was nothing to do with the design of the egg or something like that. It was just simply because if you look at the source of sensors, low cost, because we had to make it at a $100 price point. If you looked at the cost of sensors, there is just no market for high quality, low cost sensors. Actually, to measure some of the gases that we were doing, we had to use the sensors that they put in the car exhaust pipe on the annual check, because those were the only ones that really were available. So they tell you if you're dead or not. Well, the ROVM, who are the official body, if our sensor measured 0 to 100 or something, the RIVM are only measuring 0 to 0.1, and they have to split that out into increments of 1,000. So our sensor had 0, 1, and that was already 10 times the official government limit for that gas. So it's it wasn't a disaster at all, because many the amount of things which went on from that are really, really important. But it just was a really interesting thing that we kind of found that we would never have found if we wouldn't have had someone documenting it, following it, and actually having the time afterwards to kind of go interview people and to kind of make a summary. So this is my small summary of project. The sponsors always want publicity. That's always great. Makers want to make, but they don't really care what they make. Makers generally just want to make anything. You put it in front of them, they want to make, great. Give me something I can solder, fantastic. Citizen scientists actually just want to measure stuff, and for them, it's the process of measuring, getting out there, engaging with people, being part of the community is what they really like. But citizens end up wanting results, and so this is something we take into all of our subsequent citizen science projects. This was 2011. We've done maybe another 10 or so citizen science projects since then, and this is kind of something that we roll in. So we need to manage expectations here. If we know that the project is pretty much only about the making and the process, we don't set the expectation of the citizen very high. But in other cases where we know that we can get good results because it's a particular field and we know the sensors are available, then we're much more ready to go out and engage with people that really have an issue. Because we did have some people that had genuine air quality issues that wanted to actually be part of this project, and they were very, very disappointed in the end because it gave nothing for them. Most people that bought the egg were people that actually made the egg, and they plugged it in and they put it online. But as you know, with most Kickstarters, 20% of them probably got plugged in, and the other 80% just sat on the desk as an ornament. But that's the beginning of our story. Now, at the same time in Amsterdam, because things always have kind of like cross-pollination. There was this organisation which I'm a member of called Amsterdam. Oh, I should have put my t-shirt on, what do you think? But Amsterdam. Amsterdam is started by this guy called Mike Lee, who's American, and he was one of the early guys that he worked at Nextstep with Steve Jobs, and he also he was one of the first guys that cracked the iPhone, and then he was hired back into Apple to make the SDK and to make the App Store. So this guy's a pretty important guy in the app world, and he fled America, came to Europe, he loves Amsterdam, and he set up an app development community, which is very inclusive, very creative, and it was great for us because we're all sort of, America is way ahead of the curve with all app development stuff because it all comes from America. So to actually have a genuine guy that was really part of the creation of this thing in Amsterdam, permanently running this meetup group, was like great for us. And this organisation actually has 6 meetups a week.
Wow.
6 meetups a week with generally a minimum attendance of around 30 people per meetup. It's that popular, this meetup.
I'm still working out 4 a month.
Yeah, no, I mean, in total members, I don't know how many it's got, but in the actual the commitment of the members, it's like absolutely awesome. Now, this started up about the same time, and the nice thing is that the cross-pollination between this app development community and the IoT community was actually pretty much like a 50% overlap. Tons of people that were in this organisation also came to join the IoT community, so it meant that we became very quickly something that wasn't just about the nuts and bolts of IoT, but it was all about also the interface, the apps, the reaching out to the clients, the citizen interface, etc. And those things just happen. They're just serendipitous. They're both around at the same time. But this is a little bit of context that I kind of have to give you. This is my little piece on Holland. It's a complete alternate reality. Things that we find, the rest of the world finds incredibly important, are found completely unimportant in Holland. And some things completely the opposite. I mean, how to describe it is very... coffee shops, everybody knows that the policy, you can go and you can smoke weed in Amsterdam, but you would never guess that actually smoking weed is actually more legal in California than it is in Holland. It's not legal at all. It's just not prosecuted. It's actually completely illegal to run a coffee shop, because in a coffee shop you're allowed to have like 5 grams of weed. Well, you would sell that to the first customer, but you have to have like around 100 grams of weed if you run a coffee shop, and you're not allowed to buy it from anybody. It's illegal to buy it from anybody. Well, they get their stock from somewhere. Holland is full of these complete weird things that if you explain them to somebody, they just don't make any sense, but they just completely work in Holland. People pretty much do what they want. They have an extremely educated workforce. They have a workforce that also have a lot of freedom. When I started my company in 2001 in Amsterdam, one of my co-founders, he had 2 master's degrees and worked 1 day a week. Because he had his apartment when he was a student. When you're a student, you get an apartment from the government. You only have to pay $120 dollars a month for his rent. So he thinks, like, why would I work more than 1 day a week? And I'm like, well, that's not really normal, Martin. Don't you want to have like a car and all this kind of stuff and have money? And he sort of looked at me and says, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, yeah, okay, oh, well, yeah, I suppose so.
So did he start working?
Well,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's just a strange place because it's full of things which just don't make sense. But when you think them through, you think, yeah, that's really good sense. Why would you work more than you have to? Why would you do all this kind of stuff? So it's kind of like the Internet of Things. It's also great because geographically it's flat. It's very small. I mean, I don't know how big it is compared to Texas. You could probably fit it multiple times into Texas, I'm sure. 15 million people, of which almost, I say, about 11 million of them live in a small piece in the centre. So connectivity is really great. I mean, if you want to roll out something, you don't have any large distances to go across, you don't have any rocky mountains to go through, you don't have any. It's just fantastic for all sorts of experimentation with hardware, software, everything. So it's geographically just really awesome thing. And the other thing is that the Dutch, if you look at the history of Holland, the Dutch never made anything. They have the mouth of the river, which goes into Germany. The Germans made all the stuff. They just put a dollar on the end of everything that went through the river. So they're traders. So what they are the best at in Holland is collaborating. Because for them, it's just all about collaborating with other people. And they've gone around the world, they've had their colonies, they're all based on trade. Almost every Dutch people speaks 4 languages. My wife speaks 9 languages. It's just normal for them. Because they figure, if you ask a Dutch person, they'll say, yeah, but we're such a small country, we have to learn all these other languages. Because they just feel that they're too small. But it's really kind of like a real nice environment to work in. You can speak English there all the time if you want, there's no problem. It's really great place. But it means that you do have a lot of freedom, you have a lot of people that you can connect with, a lot of people can do projects which they have a lot more free time. A lot of people you can find to do citizen science projects if you want to, so it's really, really cool place. And you can study, you don't have to pay for your education, even at college, so you can, my wife finished studying when she was 36. No student loan. So it's a bit different than Britain anyway. I think it's different than here. And they have a really, really great array of makerspaces. This is a thing from, this is already from 2010, and this was a Dutch study on all the different fab labs in the Netherlands. So you can see how many fab labs and makerspaces there are in the Netherlands. But I must say, there's not a single one like this, which is professional. They're all in a university or in a back room or as part of another office or part of a government agency or something like that. So I think there's a few ones that are super professional, but then it's more like a co-working space, like a WeWork or something, which has a kind of tech shop at the bottom. But they're all those are kind of really kind of high spec and high tech. But this sort of thing, first time I've seen this, so this is really great. I wish there were more of these in Holland. So what we did at the end of that project, the IQaluk, is we created the Sensemaker Meetup group, and we created it in name at the beginning, but we decided that we would like continue with it as an ongoing project. Came up with a sort of mission statement, and so that's what we said specifically, like actually aligned with what you said. We didn't want to be only about technology, but we were about the creative space and the human-centered Internet of Things. So all the stuff which makes the Internet of Things also part of the human story. And we're very hands-on. We wanted to do projects. So that was us. We're 3,500 members now. Started 2011, so we'll be having a 5-year-old party in September this year. And we started pretty much at the same time as Barcelona, Madrid, London, New York, so I think they were all started actually to do their IQaluk. So there's a timeline of our meetup group. 2011, we did the IQaluk. 2013, Patchbay left the sea because they got bought. So Patchbay got bought by Logmein, and they changed their name, and that got bought by another company, and now they're called Zively. So if you've ever heard of Zively, that is what used to be Patchbay. So we kind of lost our sponsor. and I said that I would host a meetup group in my company because we have a big space on our ground floor. And then that's when I started actually organising it myself, as opposed to being a sort of enthusiastic participant of the meetup group. So I think in 2014 we pretty much hit about 3,500 members already. And a thing called the Smart Citizen Kit was made. I don't know if you've ever seen the Smart Citizen Kit. I've got one with me actually. But it was made out of Barcelona. It's this thing I can pass around and have a look. But it was out of Barcelona, and it is a very beautifully engineered version 2 of the air quality egg actually. It's the same guys that worked on the thing. Sensors are identical, so if you use that product, you won't get any different results. They just made it look nicer and it was way better engineered. So that's what happened then. 2015, we actually joined back with the VAR Society to do this thing called an annual Smart Citizen project. So now what the VAR started doing then is actually engaging citizens on environmental issues. They get them in, they ask them what they're interested in, and then we as Sensemakers Meetup group, we provide the technicians. So they get people in, and the first year they had 6 different subject areas people wanted to work on, and then we asked out a group, and people volunteered, and we became the technical experts that came and work with the citizens. So we've been doing quite a lot of citizen science projects now. Laura, that's our big technology that was last year. We started with the national provider KPN, who were the big telco running out Laura. And then one of our members, Vika, he actually created the Things Network out of our meetup group. I think he's been here, right? Or Johan's been here, yeah. They started that out of our meetup group. And we moved location to, I think, with the empty marine terrain in Amsterdam, because my company moved its location, so we just brought that meetup group with us. But it's actually a really beautiful place. It's an old marine base in the centre of Amsterdam. But when I say old, I mean, well, our office, we have an office in the corner called Van Gogh Zaal, which is Van Gogh room, because that's where he lived. So it's that old. It's one of the oldest buildings in Amsterdam. And it's always been the military base, but it's been decommissioned. And building by building, they're giving it over to tech companies, creative companies. You can see Central Station from it, and they actually hired us to make an Internet of Things playground of the entire terrain. So that's what we're doing. One of our assignments as a company is to create an Internet of Things, a connected space where everybody can test and do laboratory testing. And this year what we've done is we've widened our sort of management team, our organisation team to 5 people, so it's not just me now. And we're doing a water sensing project, which I'm going to talk about later, because I would like it that if we could actually get you enthusiastic enough to actually do a similar project, and we could actually do it just like the equality, we could maybe have meetups with a Skype link or something like that. But I have to convince you to do this with me. So, Smart Citizen Kit, which is what you've got in front of you, that's out of Barcelona. Barcelona are a very active group in the IoT Meetup world in Europe. Basically, it's sort of much more fancy version of the air quality egg. But the interesting thing was that because the results were bad from the air quality egg, the VAR Society in the city of Amsterdam decided to use it as an experiment. They bought 400 of them, and they gave them, or loaned them, for 3 months in the summer to 400 Dutch citizens that all lived close to each other. And then they got all the data to come up into the same cloud, and they actually did an experiment whether you could actually get results with a lot of bad data by actually doing, smoothing in big data analytics.
Do the stats on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really smart thing to do, and this is again typical of what happens in Holland. They have too much money. They do these sort of projects.
So I was curious when you were talking about how bad these sensors were.
Yeah.
Were they bad in a way that if you could calibrate each one individually, you could get meaningful results out of it, or was it just too coarse?
No, we did that. We sent them down to a university and even the RIVM, and we actually calibrated some sensors. But basically, what it came down to is, if you give it to a citizen and they put it 1 meter high, and another citizen puts it 2 meters high, it's going to give different results. If somebody puts it on outside their window and they're on a corner apartment and the wind comes around, also different data. So it's just a whole bunch of variables, way too many variables for these sensors to actually give kind of meaningful results individually. So as a cluster, they actually did give some pretty good results, but it took a lot of effort because we were dealing with real citizens, and so we actually had to make available almost like help desk staff. So we had members going around to people's houses, hooking them up to the Wi-Fi, setting them up, getting them in the box, getting them out of the box, putting them outside the window, making sure that when they put them outside the window, they didn't put it in a place that just had the sun blazing on it, because that would also be crap. So it did prove in one way that you can actually get good results if you put enough effort into it by doing kind of clustering, but you really have to manage the really have to manage the process of it. But again, interesting outcome. This is what we're all about. We're all about just learning, trying to get more handy with these kind of projects. So one day we can do a project which is really important, maybe. This is the Smart Citizen Lab that I told you, 2015. This is what the Vark Society came up with, because they run the Citizen Kit the year before, and they thought, well, this is great. If we manage the process, we can actually, get much more out of it. And this is their statement that they made for the Amsterdam Smart Citizen, is that they said that they're empowering citizens to understand the workings of the city, building an engagement platform, sharing knowledge, and it helps existing measurement points like the GGD and the RIVM. What was really interesting at this point is in the first project, the Air Quality Egg, the RIVM, that was the official body, they came to the first meetup, they explained how difficult it was, and after that they didn't want to have anything to do with it, because they thought it was very amateuristic. At this point, after going through the Smart Citizen Kit, RIVM are now actually on board, so they actually use low quality sensors themselves. They actually have one person in the RIVM who is actually tasked with continually assessing all low quality sensors as they come to the market. And they actually come and participate fully in our citizen science project. So actually the attitude of the official bodies, the government agencies, is completely flipped. Now they're looking themselves to have more data with low quality to see what works, and they're really participating in the entire picture, whereas in 2011 they were completely out there.
Have you seen the results come back around the other way from the vendors that might make the sensors to see that there's a commercial interest in this and to come up with some precision? Because it sounds to me like it's probable that the sensors could be made inexpensively if somebody knew there was enough volume to take.
Yeah, there are already, since 2011, there are higher quality, lower price sensors already on the market, because I think it's not just us, a lot of people are doing this kind of environmental sensing, and so there just becomes a market for it. So there are sensors which are coming on the market, and we actually, in this project in 2015, one team actually used one of these sensors. It was quite expensive. It was maybe $200 or something for the sensor, but compared to the $50,000, which was the previous price point of the really great sensors, I think it actually did give a lot of good results. And it was very interesting that there is a member of our meetup group that actually is South African. He came to Amsterdam after his education. He's a hardware guy. He came to Amsterdam specifically because of the Quality Egg project. He hung around in Amsterdam for a year. He helped us with a lot of projects. He came over to Silicon Valley. He went to China. He spent 6 months in China in all the factories to work out if you could make a high quality, low cost sensor. He did it, and it's not open source, unfortunately, and he actually founded a company called Birdi, B-I-R-D-I, which is sold in America now, and it's a replacement for your gas sensor, your smoke sensor that you have to have. Yeah, but it's a connected smoke detector. It's together with the Apple program, so it's a connected Apple device. So we know it's possible. We can't get him to release the tech because he can't. He would do if he could, because he's a really nice guy. But this was done on a commercial basis, so it's completely possible. We're just waiting for somebody to actually do it. The Vark are very good at making processes, so they made a process for citizen science. Dutch are very good at processes. They like to have everything in little stepwise processes. I mean, they've turned startup bootcamp that I do mentorship in is all about the process and not about the actual startup. So they love it. If you can put it on paper, the Dutch love it. Something very, very typical about them. And then they ignore it. It's very important that it's been put on paper in the first place. What they did is they made participants actually pay to be part of this program. So this one wasn't free anymore, so the citizens had to pay, which sort of gave you a sort of commitment. And then they had enablers, so we the Sensemakers were enablers, and Bach themselves. HVA is a university. Wageningen is also a university, but Wageningen is in the east of the country. They're in this agricultural belt, and they actually have a special program in their university for agricultural sensing, so that they actually have quite a lot of input into this, because they have it as a specialism in their university. Amsterdam Economic Board, where you need some money from somewhere, Amsterdam City. And the ROVM, who is the Dutch body that are experts in measuring everything. And this is what we actually did. We did a quality of, well, we wanted to do quality of swimming water, but we couldn't do it. That's the project that we're now doing this year. We did one on air quality with chimney dust particles. That's a whole different ballgame, because that's indoors. It's a lot easier to measure stuff indoors than outdoors. And the tolerances are much better, much bigger. A sound in the city, I did that project where we tried to measure sounds in the city and find out how they impacted the emotional behaviour of people. Light pollution in the city, soil, temperature, dirt, there's one missing one. Bumpiness of the roads. Cycling is a big thing in Holland, so one team actually measured the bumpiness of the roads by having the sensors on the back of bicycles. So they made a bumpy map of Amsterdam, which is pretty cool. And these are the sort of bits of kit that we use. It's very interesting when you ask. This is the sensor that these guys used, which is actually I think it's $200, and they're actually pretty accurate. I think these ones are actually being used by RIBM as sort of low-cost alternatives or portable sensors as well. These ones are the ones which are currently probably the best price point performance on the market now. Another important body in Amsterdam is a venue, and it's a venue called Pakhuis de Zwijgen, and they have all this programming to do with the circular economy. I don't know if you have it here, but the circular stuff they call it. Circular economy is like really big news in the economy. You know what it is? It's the idea of everything being recycled, sharing economy, borrowing instead of buying. It's a reuse of everything. Dutch have always been very good at this, because if you work with financial guys in the Netherlands who do earn a lot of money, like the traders, they still go by bicycle into the office, even though they can afford a Ferrari, and they still bring a little box of sandwiches with them when they go to the office. It's just inbred in the culture, so they will never buy anything if you can borrow it, or if you can reuse it. It's just crazy for them. So actually, it's a really great place to have all this programming, and they have huge programs on this here. But what they do is they always allow us at the end of a big project to have a big space to do ending presentations about our citizen science project. So on these stages we have, like, Doreen will show her video and tell what she's done, her analysis of it. We always have some international speakers coming from maybe Spain or the UK who come here and do it. So it's a really important space for us, because it's not the VARC, it's not our place, but it is a really important space in the kind of sharing economy as well. So if you ever come to Holland,
who maintains the space?
it's a commercial operation actually.
Commercial, okay.
It is a commercial operation, but yeah, you're right, it is now. They make money from the bar.
Yeah.
The bar and the restaurant, actually. That's where they make all their money. And of course, if you're Microsoft and you hire out, you have to pay something. But
Do
we
they
don't
sell
pay.
special treats there too?
No special treats. But what is very cool, if you visit Amsterdam in the next month, really tall water, just behind here, Pakhuis de Zwijgen, you go over the bridge, and the Netherlands is actually the president of the European Union at the moment. It's a 6-month rotating presidency. Each country takes it in turns. And when it comes round, the country spends a boatload of money on doing stuff, and they make special shows and whatnot. Over this bridge, there is a thing called Fab City. They made a small city, all made by Fab Labs. So it's like containers and all stuff which has been bought back in the street. Everything is either laser cut or 3D printed or something like that. A whole little city down there. It's very, very cool actually to go visit it. And it's actually where we've been doing our water project, because it's right by the water, so it's awesome for us. But that's going to disappear in a month, unfortunately. This is the marine train, or the outside of the marine train. So I told you it was an old part of Amsterdam, actually the oldest part of Amsterdam. So we're through that door, and behind there there's a sort of like a secret garden with a little fountain in the middle, and all sorts of tech companies and startups. But no, this is very interesting. The startups are all in a certain area of town, and the person that is the project manager of this, she finds it very, very important. She's old school in Amsterdam. She, together with the current mayor of Amsterdam, together with the chief technology officer who I travelled over with on this trip, all used to be squatters. So they all know each other from back in the day when they were squatting houses. So she finds it very important that this space is not taken over by young tech companies. So she wants artists and some tech companies and some physical makers and some things. So she programs it in there. It's owned by the city, so it has it's not like a commercial property, so it doesn't have to make top dollar for everything. She can choose who goes in there. And it's becoming a really, really nice creative space actually. That's where it is. So if you see, this is the Central Railway Station. This is the Museum of Nemo Museum, which is of technology. This is the Scheepvaart Museum, which is the Maritime Museum. And this entire area is the marine terrain. It's like a football field is, well, that's a football field. It's colossal. If you take that and you put it over the centre of Amsterdam, you see how much space there is. And specifically, the project that we're doing now about swimming quality is because they're turning this into a public swimming area. But this is canal water. And they want to have buoys floating in there which will actually let people know if they should jump in the water now or not. That's their very specific need. So that's what we're making for this area here. But you know, the principle of making anything that measures water quality should be similar if you want to measure something else. It's just the fact that we're learning how to make things that flow, to waterproof, how to protect sensors. This is what I'm doing at the moment. I was just telling the organiser before that I was just telling you that I've created this Internet of Things Living Lab in Amsterdam, which is simply to, shall I be honest or shall I be dishonest? I'll be honest. Okay. All the big money's gone down to Barcelona. Cisco set up their IoT Sense. The mayor of Barcelona is pushed behind IoT like crazy. Yahoo, is that still a company? They've got a centre down there. They did have one. Dell have got their IoT centre there. So all the money's going down to Barcelona, and I don't want the talent to go down there. So we're trying to do as many things in Amsterdam to make sure that we try and keep our IoT community, commercial IoT community there, so that people can actually do startups. They feel that they don't have to go down to Barcelona or to Berlin. Berlin is also very popular. And so that's what I've been making the last kind of 12 months. That's been 50% of my job is making this living laboratory in Amsterdam, which started off with this, which is a connected mile of sensors. So we have along here eye beacons, but we also have LoRa sensors. So we have stuff giving air quality, air temperature, we have pressure, we have some really cool demos along here where you actually have even the eye beacons being changed over LoRa, so we can actually, in different weather conditions, we can renumber the eye beacon. So we're just doing all sorts of experimentation here. As soon as we did this, the floodgates opened. So the company that provide all of the bus stops and tram stops, they provide all the street furniture in Amsterdam. So park benches, trash cans, a whole lot. It's one company and it's subcontracted out in Amsterdam to one company, and actually that company pay the city to put the street furniture there, and then they sell advertising on it. But they know that this is not going to be enough in the future. So they gradually, over the years, put more and more functionality in there. So the bus stops at the moment act as sort of pico cells for Vodafone, and they're going to probably provide city Wi-Fi as well. So they've opened up all of their furniture bars so that we can put IoT devices in any part of the city. So right now we've got 1,400 either beacons or LoRa devices in bus, tram stops, trash cans all over the city. And this company, they're fine with it. They just let us do it. As long as it doesn't compete with their commercial proposition, and it is for the good of the city. Because what they're really worried about is that they have 10-year contracts, and they're worried about in 10 years' time that the city will want much more things from them, and not only a bus stop or a tram stop. So they're very, very interested in seeing how they can keep their competitive edge, because they do this with all cities in Europe. I mean, they're a big JC Decode, you know. I saw them even in the airport, providing the things with the advertisement billboards in there.
Are you seeing any particular commercial success or attraction from certain areas? I mean, so far, it sounds like these are a lot of experiments. I'm curious if there's something that's generating industrialization, consumption that's paid for out of any of this.
Well, at the moment, I must say most of the IoT stuff is fairly industrial. We actually make quite a lot of money out of connected parking stuff, which we've been developing. We've got a LoRa-enabled solar-powered parking site that you can it downloads all sorts of downloads a database who's allowed to park there with a beacon in says that you should park or not. But there's people that make quite a lot of money out of trash cans, about rescheduling the emptying of trash cans. That's been done. They're selling. There's companies who have done a lot with energy saving. So there's always a debate if you can turn down can you lower the power on the lamps in the street lights at certain times of day or night, so not switch them off, but actually start putting them on dim. And there's a company making money out of that. So there's a few early ones at the moment, but I think the big key is the LoRa network, because that really allows us to do long battery life communication. All of the previous solutions have all been sort of GSM based or Bluetooth based. Bluetooth only has 50 meters, so you have to make a mesh, and that's a huge overhead as well. So I think the LoRa thing is going to kick in pretty soon. Those who know the Things Network, well, you saw Johan, they started out about IQaluk group. I think this is going to be a key enabler. Not only the Things Network, but in Holland, KPN, the national telco, is rolling out LoRa network already. They were doing that before TTN started. In Belgium, the national carrier is rolling out a commercial LoRa network. Germany, it's being done by an energy company, actually. Italy is rolling out, I think Sprint is going to do it here. That's what I last heard, or maybe not. But basically, this network will be worldwide pretty soon. And then I think it's so much easier to make product when you can actually put a small battery in it, and the manufacturing process is just reduced, and you can just get more stuff out there. So this is a key thing for us, just personally, that we on the marine terrain, because the European Union is the president for 6 months, they decided to renovate several buildings. So they spent 4 million euros making this building look so nice as it does now. And then a week before the presidency started, the big wigs came from Brussels and said it's not big enough, so they don't need it. So Makerversity, who are a big maker space, they actually got to use this space now, so it should be used by the EU. Waste money, but anyway. So actually, in this area, there's a really great maker space with co-working, and they've got like heavy machines down at the bottom of the back, and these 2 floors here have got all the kind of clean machines, 3D printers and stuff like that. And it's on marine terrain, and they offered their space for our meetup, so now we meet up in Makerversity, and they allow us to have our monthly meetup, but then in between we're allowed to have a project meetup where we can use all the equipment for free, as long as we don't conflict with members and we do it in such a way that we don't, it doesn't look like we're taking business away from them or something. I mean, generally, the people that are in our group that want to do permanent making, they'll buy a membership there anyway, so they're not really losing anything, you know. So for us, that's really a key thing. I said that we widen the organisation team, so that's me. And we have Casper, who was the original founder of the Meetup group, but he had to go away for personal reasons for a few years, and this year he stepped back in, so I've got him with me, and Maurice and Manon. So now we're organising as many things as we possibly can. You use a lot of tools, I noticed. We also use Slack. We've got a GitHub. We just started to use fablabs.io, which is made out of Barcelona, and it's for all maker communities. It's a version of GitHub, but with extra stuff for hardware collaboration. So we're experimenting with that as of about a month ago. We made a program this year, and this is really important. What we asked all the people that came to the meetup what they found most valuable, and they mostly found education valuable, because we just did, by complete accident, a good job of getting really interesting topics all the time. And a lot of people they're not professional makers at all. They're working in organisations. They're working in Philips, or they're working. Their day job is with Vodafone or something. But they have ambitions, maybe personally, to do something with product design and product making, or they go back into the office and they're part of a team which is actually thinking about these type of issues. And so we just ended up getting a bunch of different people to speak on a bunch of different topics. So we've had from Laura to working with the ESP 2066. What is the difference between a microprocessor and a microcontroller? A lot of people don't even know that. Tips for Kickstarter, this was great. We've got a member, Sodak. They've done 3 Kickstarter campaigns, 3 successful Kickstarter campaigns. And on the third one, they used all the knowledge they had from the first 2, and then they gave us an inside track on how to win a Kickstarter campaign. So, really nice, varied subject. The one that blew me away was Wolfram. I knew the name Wolfram, but one of the guys that was in the original team that made Wolfram came over, and I mean, I don't know why anybody would need IBM Watson if you've got Wolfram. My God, the thing is just unbelievable. It blew me away what it can do. I don't even know why most people don't even know about it. We've had Bitcoin, we've had hands-on Watson, we've had hands-on laser cutting, all sorts of stuff. But because it's such a wide range, what we decided to do is turn it into a program. And the idea is that if you come to every meetup for 12 months, you will have seen or learned something new about every aspect of the fabrication process. So we're just smoothing it out so that if you come every month, then at the end of the year, you will have seen at least one thing about 3D printing, at least one thing about laser cutting, at least one thing about mass production. I mean, you would be great if you're not in Amsterdam. Everything that you need end to end, also citizen engagement, also the cloud, MQTT, etc. So we're just making it a little bit more formal.
We're doing a similar thing here. We haven't done it in a while, but ours is Raspberry Pi based.
Oh, yeah.
And then every month we're building upon the knowledge that came before it.
Yeah.
And that's our goal too. Is
We should collaborate on that then, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that if you miss one, you don't, it's not a program that you have to start here and go there. So we just want to make sure that if you come for 12 months, you would have done it. Most people don't come to every meetup. So let's say over a couple of years, if you come to 12 meetups, you will also have been able to see something about every aspect of it. And alongside, we want to do a couple of projects which are independent of the ones we do with the VARC. So like the air quality egg, originally it was our project, even though the VARC was stimulating it. We want to just do some things more on our own for the learning. So actually the projects we do on our own, the output is not the goal. The goal is that people learn how to make stuff. So
to learn all the pieces fit together.
Exactly. I'm nearly at the end, so don't. I know, because you're nodding there. These are a few notable people or people that come to our meetup. Sodak, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them because I really like those guys. Kiesel, that's the one that I spoke to you about. This is, these guys came to our meetup 18 months ago. They had the idea for this product and they kind of connected with some of the members. A few of the members helped them out. They asked a lot of questions. They got connected to some other suppliers and other companies. They went up to Indiegogo, got $1 million, well, not, got $944,000, made their product. They're just about to ship it at the moment. And very kindly, they came back to the meetup group last month to tell us the story because they came to our meetup group originally and they told us the story of how, well, they underestimated absolutely every single aspect. There was not one aspect of the entire product they hadn't underestimated.
We have one of our members who has that story.
We had once a guy from Pebble that came over to our meetup group and he did a talk and he said that I think that I can't remember what they asked for a certain amount and then they got like 10 times or something. I remember on Kickstarter it was like Talk of the Town, right, the Pebble watch. And he said if only they'd have known, because actually they raised this much money and they were super happy, but then when they worked it back, if they hadn't have raised that much, they wouldn't have been able to ship a single watch. It was that badly underestimated every single step. So that's the reason why you should get together with this guy.
It sounds like the Raspberry Pi story too.
Probably it's the same everywhere, but you know, it's these guys, Wevolver, they made a platform for collaborating on hardware projects. They became funded, they went to London. We used their, before trying out the Fab Labs, we used their platform. And they're really nice guys, full stop. They're actually here in the US now, so I don't know if they're close to here or elsewhere. Biggest network we've told you about. This is the Glimmer Beacon. That's my own story about going from a product idea to an actual mass-produced, packaged, sustainable consumer product. So this one is the Fairphone. Anybody heard about Fairphone? This was from. It's from the Vach Society again. There's a very important lady there that was the founder of the Vach Society called Marlene Stecker. She went on a tour of Africa and South America looking at what are the conditions that people work under to build a mobile phone. And she went back to the Netherlands and she made a series of 3 one-hour documentaries for the Dutch National Television about how utterly horrific it is, the human impact of one telephone. And she started a project which was to make a fair phone. So this is a telephone made with no child labour, nobody's having any, is having to work in chemical conditions, etc., etc., etc. It's modular also, so has other aspects to it. But in the Netherlands, it's really, really famous because, you know, it's just such a beautiful story. And I mean, it's heavy. It's not like light as an apple, but it is upgradable and modular. But the story is so nice, you know, because the fact that somebody took the time to think about it, to do it. She got people to back it, not commercially, but you know, people to back it voluntarily, and then was able to actually get it to the stage where this is now like a saleable item and you can buy a fair phone, which is genuinely fair. I'm going to give one big shout out to these guys. Sodak are really our best members, I would say. These guys worked for, they're Dutch, but they were sort of brought up in Indonesia and they're quite international. They worked for about 20 years in Africa, making PCBs and little devices which measured water flow and also water quality. And so they've worked really in harsh conditions for the World Bank and for the World Health Organization. These guys really have their heart in the right place as well. You know, they can make more money doing the other stuff. This is what they like to do. They're a family business, 2 brothers, and their youngest son, that's also in the business, said a few years ago, "Hey Dad, you know, why don't we package this up as a Arduino compatible and put it on Kickstarter?" And he says, "Yeah, sure, that's fine, let's do it." Went on Kickstarter. It's a really well thought out board because it has nice big chunky grow connectors, so out in the field the stuff isn't going to fall out. It has a real-time clock on it, so you can actually sleep properly in between wake-up cycles. It has a little B slot for communication. It's solar powered from day one, so you just only have to plug in a solar panel and a battery. I use this for all my projects. I mean, I just think it's an awesome thing. But the nice thing is that they're even so nice. These are the ones that had the 3 times Kickstarter also, so they came to do that. And this is what we're using for our water sensing project. They just finished a project for a non-profit organisation funded by UNESCO, because there is a water quality, I don't know exactly the details, but there's a water sensor which is the most used one in all over the world for doing environmental monitoring. It costs about $1,000, and they asked them to make a cheaper one. This has a $6 bill of materials, so to make it, it's probably maybe 30 bucks or something. They asked the person that gave them the assignment if they could donate it, the hardware reference design, into the project, and they said yes. So this has been donated into our project, the hardware reference design for this, so that we can actually make that sensor.
Nice.
And so that's what we're going to use or try it out in our Waterboy project. That's why I give them such a big shout out, because they give us so much. This is our first water boy meetup that we had. So that's where I went to ask if you want to do the same thing as us. So this is really a typical story of I did what I used to work years ago in a consultancy, and I did this thing called an influencing skills course. But I remember the first thing they did is they said, okay, you're crashed in the middle of Alaska. Your plane has crashed. You're okay. Your stuff is there. You know, you've got to choose, but you can only take 10 things with you. You have to choose the 10 things, and you have to convince your neighbour that your 10 things are the right 10 things. And you sit down there and you can't imagine what the other person must have been thinking. And then they say, yeah, well, what you will find out first of all is that some people already decided to make a break for it, and some people decided to stay there and wait for safety. And they're completely different things that you would have chosen to keep, right? And that explains why the thought process is different. We started the Waterboy project. We had the first session of it, and in my head, this was a Waterboy. I looked it up on the Indestructibles, and I said, right, this is a boy. It's like this deep. I found these guys that do geocaching projects. It has cement in the bottom, it falls in the water and stuff like this. Mostly what people actually designed was something about this big, because what their entire design principle was, they wanted something that they could carry with them in their backpack, go to a lake, throw it in to see if they could swim. So we've already got like 2 completely different projects here. So we already have 1, 2, 3, 4 designs that we're working on, starting from 4 completely different headspaces. And we're kind of going to do that the next like 3-4 months or something. And so if you had thought that you wanted to do also a water sensing project, you could also do it at the same time with us, and then we could exchange notes, and maybe do some kind of like chat on the Slack, and we could join up a little bit. So that's just something to think about. I did though realise that you probably have different issues. We're thinking about, can I swim in a canal? Whereas I saw that on the news that you have people drowning in fast-running rivers at the moment. So maybe it doesn't. What I'm saying is you have different problems. So maybe you want to do a water sensing, but it's not to measure whether you can swim in a piece of water. Maybe you want to measure something else because your locality has different problems. I think that would also be very cool to do. So completely different end results from different meetup groups could be pretty interesting. But
yeah, we have big issues here every time it rains.
Yeah. So maybe you have completely other things that you want to measure, but if we could do something similar where we could exchange design files, we would find that really, really cool. I think I must be on the last slide or 2 here. Just a bit of geography, a bit of background about Europe at the moment, and these are pretty much the 4 most important places for hardware making in Europe. Am I right with this?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, because he really knows, because he was business employees, but Barcelona is a very active meetup group. They do a lot of stuff down there. Like I say, the mayor of Barcelona a few years ago said that IoT they're going to attract. They put sensors all around the city. They attracted startups. They attracted really high value corporations to go down there. Oracle, all these guys have made this kind of IoT focused campus down there. It's
Did
attracting
they
a lot
just have a big convention in Barcelona?
They
last
also
month or two?
have the Mobile World Congress
Yeah.
to hook everything around, and they've always had that. So it's also for them a really great event to hook
Could start to cycle all over again.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, mobile phones are not such a big business now, so they've switched to IoT in that. London is always big in these things. It's just a big city, and it does have a lot of money in London, like obscene amount of money in London. Half of it's all illegal from audio, but who cares where it comes from, right? Netherlands, well, I'm going to circle that because that's where I'm from. But Berlin is really important as well. There's a lot of hardware incubators and startup people in Berlin. Germany has a little bit of a I think culturally Germany has quite an engineering background. I think they understand in general as a nation how difficult it is to engineer products. I mean, everybody knows high quality products, BMW and Mercedes and Bosch and things that come from Germany. So it's not really surprising that they're quite good at incubating this type of product because they actually understand how difficult it is to see it through. Yeah, and finally, the last slide. I think this is something which is good but not good. I got involved in Startup Bootcamp because I like it to see the young startups. But Dutch now politically have the ambition to be the third biggest startup city in. Well, Amsterdam has to be the third biggest startup city in Europe. And because of that, they've sold their soul to the devil. And they basically say that the only way that they can get bigger is by having venture capital, more venture capital. It doesn't come from Europe, it has to come from the States. So let's try and get as many American investors to come into Amsterdam as possible, which is kind of good if you're the United States in the long term, but it's not really very good if you're Holland. So I question the logic of trying to get all of your investors from the States. Because you don't get money for free, right? It comes with some kind of string attached.
And staff on there ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Exactly. I mean, it's really strange. I was in the European Union session a little while ago, and they were saying, we need more startups in Europe like this, and this, and all 5 that they put on the thing have been bought by either Google or Facebook or something like that. Okay, man, is that really Europe's ambition that if you really do your best and you're the best that you can be, you're really good enough to be bought by an American corporation? Is that the pinnacle? I mean, it's also great. I mean, I'd love to be bought by Google, but as a national ambition, it's not really not really the right way to look at it, is it?
Sure.
I mean, we should be Philips. Philips is a big name. Philips is a big name around the world. But for innovation, it should be. So that's my last slide. So you can always contact me if you want to know anything about Amsterdam IoT scene. If you want to know anything, if you want to find a startup in Amsterdam, I actually can do that. If you just want to discuss, so that's me. Okay.
So in order to join the Slack group, we'll just email you.
Oh yeah. Just email me if you want to join the Slack group. So that's it.
All right.
Any questions?
That's great.
Jonathan, this was a very impressive presentation about your club in Amsterdam.
Thank you.
I didn't know what to anticipate tonight because the synopsis of tonight's meeting didn't even point to any of this. But if our group could do 10% of what you've done, we could be proud.
Exactly.
Well,
You're doing stuff that I see a trickle-down effect that what will come out of Amsterdam will change the world.
oh, that's really great.
My question is, where are the big corporate sponsors like Philips and Royal Dutch Shell?
Okay. We don't want them actually.
Okay.
No, honestly, it's like there is Philips. Philips for starters is a shell company now. Philips does no innovation. It's very, very shameful actually. My wife's mother actually even knew Fritz Philips, the son of the founder of it, and before he died a couple of years ago, I think he was almost the state of Philips. What actually happened with Philips is they turned themselves into a marketing organisation, essentially. They do innovation in healthcare, pretty much. They did do some innovation in lighting, but they've even sold that division off now. And for the rest, all the really smart engineers that love to invent, they all went off onto the spin-offs. So if you visit ASML, which is a spin-off of Philips, if you go to NXP, which is a spin-off of Philips,
I was gonna say that NXP
and
is.
you walk into, you're an employee and you work in ASML, and you're an engineer, the top boss of the company will probably within a week pass your desk and ask you what you're doing and take an interest and say, hey, I really like that, tell me more about it. And that's the sort of company engineers want to work for. So they all fled Philips long ago, and they work for the spin-offs. That's what's really happened.
I want to make an announcement
Sorry.
to the group that's relative to what you just said about Amsterdam and the successors of Philips. NXP Semiconductor has acquired Freescale
That's right,
Semiconductor
Yeah.
here in Austin and is now the fourth largest semiconductor company in the world behind Intel, Samsung, and Qualcomm.
Right.
But really the most diverse semiconductor company in the world in terms of being not just a digital company, but mixed signal, analog, discretes. And the interesting part is that they have moved their headquarters from the Netherlands. 350 executives, Dutch, are now at the Oak Hill site here in Austin.
Yes.
So we should be happy that this Dutch company is now headquartered here in Austin, and it is an incredible resource in this IoT space.
Yeah, no, I would say absolutely, because the NXP people, like I say, NXP, ASML, those skills, just people that love to engineer, that's where they all went. They all fled the Philips organisation, and it's very unusual now for a corporation to headquarter outside of the Netherlands, because we have this horrific for the world economy thing called the Irish Dutch sandwich, you know it? Is it famous outside of Europe? Okay. In the Netherlands, they don't tax royalties. Therefore, U2 and the Rolling Stones have always had their incorporation done in the Netherlands, because you don't get taxed on royalties. And what do you earn as a musician? Royalties. Unfortunately, the formula for Google search is incorporated in the Netherlands. It's then leased back to Google. And that's how they get away with not paying tax on it all. Starbucks coffee recipe is officially incorporated in the Netherlands. Actually, if you look at the books, it's about 100 yards from my house.
Oh, wow.
They allow the Starbucks coffee restaurants to use the formula, and they don't pay tax. It's absolutely horrific. I mean, this is where all the tax avoidance is going through in the world. It's really, really terrible. The Dutch have set themselves up so nicely for this. I don't know how they get away with it. It's got to stop one day, because otherwise the world would just implode or something. But I mean, honestly, the amount of headquarters there are in the Netherlands is just, there are more corporations and people living in Amsterdam, I think. That's how it happens.
Sure.
Yeah. And the other one they do is there's a three-way thing. That if you have headquarters in America, and you have one in Ireland, and then you have a subsidiary in Holland, and you say in the United States that your decisions are made not in the United States, that is not where you have to pay tax anymore on your product revenues. If you say in Ireland, vice versa, you don't have to pay it there. So actually, they each say that their decisions are made in the Netherlands. They have an office of one person in the Netherlands. They don't pay tax either way.
Wow.
Because there's no treaty which says that they have to give the information back. It's just like this whole Panama Papers. It's really obscene. But I don't know. Did you have the Panama paper thing here?
I remember hearing about that, yeah.
But in America, apparently, you can avoid tax anyway by going to some states, so it's not such a big deal. But
It's fugly.
yeah. There's apparently one house there's one which is owned a Panamanian company. Panamanian company is owned with this paper bonds or something. So basically, whoever's got the piece of paper owns the company. So there's no record written of who it is. So therefore, you can't tax it. So if you want to buy and sell the property, you just transfer the share, the piece of paper, to somebody else. And that thing's been going backwards and forwards weekly for something like $200, $300, $400 million a time. They found that that's how they've been, the North Koreans have been buying the technology.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Because you can't find it, you can't track it.
Sure.
It's a show game.
Yeah.
You really show it. I could go on forever anyway, sorry.
Real quick,
Yeah.
so what's your opinion on like standardized IoT platforms? Like today I read a news article on Nokia bringing out a platform called Impact, which is supposed to be your center of gravity for all
Yeah.
IoT devices. Also Silicon Labs, and companies like Nordic Semiconductor. And I see these different companies promoting what they call an IoT standard, like
Yeah.
an infrastructure. So your networking, your gateway, your cloud storage, where you just bring in the endpoints to complete it. I mean, what's your opinion on that? Is that kind of hype?
My personal opinion is that it's all that's doomed to fade because there's so many of them out there that anybody that's on the other end of the purchasing decision, a big purchasing decision, is going to wait for the shakedown because you don't want to get the stupid one which goes out of fashion. There's so many of them. I think every second week there's a new IoT platform. I personally just do everything with just MQTT, Node-RED, really basic data storage, and actually the living lab that I created. What we do is we actually take all the data through LoRa or through just normal HTTP requests. We take it in, we shuffle it out through MQTT, so it's completely published. Anybody can subscribe to it, and we push it into, at the moment, 16 different platforms. So that if somebody wants to see what their data looks like in Google App Engine compared to the Amazon offering, compared to Zively, compared to Thinkful, compared to ThingSpeak, we put it simultaneously into 16 different platforms, just so people can make a comparison.
Oh, nice.
And the whole thing is, what we prove is, it ain't that difficult to put it in different platforms, so you don't need to make a choice.
Just pick one and go with it.
Yeah, bring it in, stick it in a database yourself, and then put it in whatever you decided to use this month, and then, next month if you change it, just replay the data in the system or something. I don't think there's a big standardization. The thing that I am attending at the moment is this Smart Cities Global Challenge conference, which is now also this Smart City conference, which the reason why the Dutch are here is because of NXP. Because of the recent acquisition of NXP, so the Dutch government thought they should bring a big delegation here, so we've been out at drinks parties with the mayor of with the mayor of Austin, who I must say is funny. I can't imagine having a mayor like that.
Steve
You went to
Edward.
go and get drunk. I mean, he's actually a very cool guy. But
I
mean,
met
that's the
him
whole
once.
reason why we're here. And they talk about standardization, and it's all blah 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 blah. Talk forever.
So once you have this installed in a ecosystem, there would be a need for like security enhancement, or in a
Yes.
case where it's all open in the market, like once you install, it's going to run for years and
Yeah.
people can hack it.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your, wherever we have implemented it, what do you do from a security standpoint?
Yeah, quite deliberately, I ignore it completely because I want innovation, and if I start talking about security, it's just going to get into an endless discussion. The great thing about LoRa is it's end-to-end encrypted, so the packets are encrypted at the source and at the end, so everything that comes over LoRa is basically secure, and then after that, then it's traditional security into whatever cloud platform you're using. Bluetooth data, if it comes through an app or comes through a phone, you're just at the mercy of whoever made the app and however they do it. But I don't know. I kind of made a conscious decision not to think about it very hard, and to wait until something comes up because they become it's a bit of a blocker at the moment on things. As soon as people talk about it, it kind of starts getting derailed.
sensor actually measure? The one that you said that they open source the design for?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in the water monitoring, so I actually don't know. I wanted to ask them before I came here if they could explain exactly what it was measuring, but I didn't get an email from them. So, but I'll post that up when I know exactly what it is. But all I know is that these guys engineer stuff all the time, and they've kind of taken something that's expensive and made a cheap version of it, which maybe it's not quite as accurate. But they've been down to Delft University, which is a very good technical university in the Netherlands where a lot of research is done, and they've been testing it down there with Delft University and Rotterdam and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like they've just tested it themselves. It's been quite, for whatever it measures, it's been quite thoroughly tested.